Hey y'all, it's Melissa from the Little Florida Kid. Welcome to my channel. I am a homeschooling mama to 3 kiddos, and most of what you find on my channel is homeschool content. If you like that kind of stuff, I hope you'll hit that red subscribe button and stick around. Today is actually a requested video about the Civil Air Patrol, and if that's something you've never heard of, stick around. You'll learn something. Okay, so first of all, my earrings say OHIO because on the day that I'm filming this, it's the first game of the season for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And if you didn't know already, I'm a huge Ohio State Buckeyes fan. And so I'm always wearing game day attire on game day. I'm also a huge college football fan in general. So anyway, I'm excited football season is back. I digress. So today's video is about the Civil Air Patrol. And the reason that I'm doing a video on this is because I have been asked to do a video on this by some subscribers to my channel. If you have never been to my channel, then you may not know this, but my oldest son is in 9th grade this year. And since the moment he was big enough to tell us what he wanted to be when he grew up, the answer has always been a fighter pilot. Always. He is fascinated by airplanes, has always been fascinated by airplanes, specifically fighter planes, but all airplanes, any airplane will do. And so I was thrilled to find out about something called the Civil Air Patrol several years ago, and he has been in the Civil Air Patrol for 3 years now. You're able to join the Civil Air Patrol cadet program when you turn 12, and he is now 15, so he has been in the program from the very beginning, well, as soon as he could be at age 12, and he absolutely loves it. And so I've talked a little bit about it on my channel before, and so some mamas asked, hey, I want to know more about this. So that's what today's video is. So a little bit of history about the Civil Air Patrol. So the Civil Air Patrol is the U.S. Air Force auxiliary. It's an auxiliary to the United States Air Force. And it was started in 1936. A man named Gil Rob Wilson was a World War I aviator. And when he got back from World War I, he thought that there needed to be some basically civilian aviation units that would be able to assist our country whenever it needed. And after he started his, I believe it was in Ohio, and I do have some notes just to make sure I don't forget anything. So if you see me looking down, that's why. So then some other, in other parts of the country, some other military-style civilian aviation units kind of popped up. And then in December 1941, the government decided to organize all of these civilian aviation units into one organization as an auxiliary to the United States Air Force. And so that was when the official Civil Air Patrol was born in December of 1941. And so in 1942, they started their cadet program, which at the time was really focusing on training for military and other wartime service agencies. But one of the big things that the Civil Air Patrol did, and if you've ever been to the National Aviation Museum at Wright-Patt Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, which if you're ever even remotely close to there and you have a kid interested in airplanes or whatever, go. It's fabulous. We've been many, many times, and we could still go back 100 more times. We love it. But one of the things we learned there at Wright-Patt at the museum is that during World War II, the Civil Air Patrol actually had civilians doing coastal patrol flights because all of our military aviators were gone during the war, and it really kind of left the United States a little bit vulnerable because all of our aviators and soldiers and most of our military was gone away from the country. And so these civilians who for whatever reason weren't in the military. Maybe they were too old, maybe they were too, I don't know, maybe had a disability that prevented them from being in the military, but they were still aviators. They were able to help not only patrol our coastline to help keep our country safe, but they also flew things back and forth across the country or wherever things needed to go, because like I said, most of our airplanes were gone away from our country during that time. So the Civil Air Patrol had a pretty big impact on things during World War II, which I find just absolutely fascinating. So anyway, in October 1942 is when the cadet program started, and so the Civil Air Patrol has been around for a very long time. Basically their own description of what they are is to mobilize civilian aviation resources for national defense service. So basically, the Civil Air Patrol is made up of aviators and non-aviators who want to basically volunteer to serve their country in these capacities when our country needs them. So there are three main things that the Civil Air Patrol does. Number one, emergency services. So all of the Civil Air Patrol members, both the senior members, which is what they call the adult members, so both the senior members and the cadets are trained for emergency ground services, and some of them that are pilots are trained for aviation services, and basically they can get called up during a time of a disaster, or if somebody is lost, for example, like if a hiker gets lost in the woods or something like that, they will sometimes call on the Civil Air Patrol to volunteer and use their training in order to help. For example, we live very close to where Hurricane Ida just went through, and just about 24, I guess, to 36 hours before Ida was scheduled to make landfall, they did call on my son's squadron to be on standby to go and provide emergency services to Louisiana and Mississippi if they were going to be needed. At the time, the hurricane hadn't made landfall. It was supposed to be very bad, and so they were called up and basically put on standby. And so what that meant for my son is that he had to have his 24-hour pack ready to go, with everything packed in it that he would need to basically sleep under the stars for 48 hours, and do things like pass out water and resources to victims, take notes and report back to FEMA about things like damage, structures, buildings, bridges, things like that. My son serves on ground services, so what he does is on the ground, but also part of what they would have done is those that are in the aviation part of it, they get in their airplanes and they fly over the damage and report back to FEMA about damage and things that they've seen on their flight. So it can be a huge asset to our country in times like that. Now, it turned out that Ida was not nearly as bad as they anticipated, and so our squadron was actually told to stand down and that they were not going to be needed. While disappointing for the cadets a little bit, I think that's a good thing, because that means things were not as bad as they anticipated they might be. But that's an example of some emergency services that they provide, and that's one of the main components of the Civil Air Patrol. Number two, aerospace education. So they have a big impact on aerospace education in our country, not just for the cadet program, but also kids outside of the cadet program. So they provide some services like that for kids that aren't in the program necessarily, that encourages aerospace education and STEM and all that fun stuff. And then finally, their cadet programs is the third main thing that the Civil Air Patrol does, and that is what my son is a part of. And so the cadet program basically focuses on teaching kids 4 things: leadership, aerospace education, fitness, and character. And so basically, it works even for the cadets very much like the Air Force, the military. They work through different character building things, fitness, leadership, aerospace modules. They have to take tests. They learn drill just like they do in the military. They do the military fitness test, and they do things like encampment, which is very similar to boot camp. And they just have all these wonderful opportunities for these kids to learn about all of these things. They have what is called O-flights, so they actually get to learn how to fly a plane. They get to fly in gliders, which my son did not want to be on camera to talk about this, but when I said, what should I tell them is your favorite thing about Civil Air Patrol, he said flying and gliders. So they do get to fly, and he has been in, I think he's been in the glider 3 times now, which that terrifies me, but he absolutely loves it and he's very good at it. They do offer flight scholarships. So if you're unable to pay for flight lessons, which are very expensive, you do have an opportunity to earn a scholarship so that you can get your pilot's license through the Civil Air Patrol, which my son is aiming to do because it's expensive, but he really, really wants his pilot license, so he's working towards that now. And then another cool thing about the Civil Air Patrol is that as they rank up, if they reach a certain rank in the Civil Air Patrol and they do decide to enlist in the military, any branch, not just the Air Force, but any branch of the military, then they actually will enter the military at a slightly higher rank with a slightly higher pay grade than what they would have done if they had just enlisted straight out of high school. So if you have a kid who really is interested in the military, this is a really good way to get a jump start on achieving rank in the military and more pay before you ever join. So that's one big perk. For my son personally, I have seen so much growth and change in him, in his maturity and his character and his responsibility. And to have a 15-year-old boy who is really super thrilled to go have to sleep under the stars in hurricane ravaged area to help those people just was really inspiring and amazing to me, that he wanted to do that. And had he not been trained by these wonderful leaders that he has in his Civil Air Patrol squadron, which, by the way, they're volunteers, they don't get paid. They do it because they love the kids and they love what they're doing. But if it had not been for that, this 3 years, I just don't imagine most 15-year-old boys would really want to do that. But he was really excited, and he was actually a little disappointed when they were asked to stand down. Sorry. There's craziness going outside my window. Sorry, that's loud. Hopefully that's not too loud. Anyway, so if you have a kid that's interested in aviation, aerospace, the military, flying, I highly encourage you to go to the Civil Air Patrol website and find out if there's a squadron near you. It is gocivilairpatrol.com. Also, you can find out all kinds of other really cool stuff about the Civil Air Patrol, not just the cadet program, but their programs in general and what they provide for our country. I wish more people knew about it because I think it's pretty awesome. I didn't know about it either until a friend of ours told us about it when we were trying to figure out how we could help Brooks fly, because that's all he's ever wanted to do. So anyway, I cannot say enough good things about the Civil Air Patrol. Our squadron here where we live meets every Monday night, and they right now they're meeting virtually again because of the pandemic, but hopefully they'll be back in person soon, and They meet every Monday night, like I said, and then they have special events, trainings. A few weeks ago, my son went with part of the squadron to that wing conference for our state, about 4 hours away from here for the weekend. They had a great time. They loved it. It's just a really great program, and I highly encourage you, if you do have a kid who's interested in that kind of thing, to definitely look into it. It is absolutely phenomenal program run by phenomenal people, and I give it 2 big thumbs up. So yeah, that's the Civil Air Patrol. Definitely check it out. See y'all next time.